Vox Lux is a 2018 film written and directed by Brady Corbett, or Corbet, or Corbett. I don't need to look at that anymore. And it is an exploration of the exploitation of tragedy. I watched this film a few days ago, prior to filming this, of course, on a Saturday night after having watched Beale Street, if Beale Street could talk, and Cold War, two movies that heavily use music, at least for mood. And this is completely different. This film is like A Star is Born if it was enjoyed by mass audiences. It's not a bad film. I've given it my review on Letterboxd, saying it was kind of a what the fuck just happened. In this video, I will be exploring the film itself. I don't know how many spoilers I will get. There will be minor spoilers, at least for the plot structure, but I might go into detail as to the whole film, because I don't really know if anyone will watch it, so I don't really know if it matters. Also, I don't really know who's going to watch this, so I don't really know if it matters. I probably shouldn't have worn a V-neck, because I just realised because it's baggy, the mic brings it down, but that's alright, I can wing this essay. I don't really like to call an essay if I'm improvising. But yeah, so pretty much in terms of monetization of tragedy, this film focuses on a character called Celeste, who in her earlier years is played by a young actress, who I will now look up just for the fact of I should probably look up who the actress is. Raffi Cassidy, I believe that's her. Is that right? That should be right. It also stars Natalie Portman as the 30-year-old version of her. Yes, Raffi Cassidy from The Killing of a Sacred Deer. And Molly Moon. So it starts with her in 1999. Ordinary day at school, in a music class, and they're calling the roll, and then a school shooting happens. So that's how it starts. Literally the whole class of kids that get gunned down. It is not very pleasant. It's very dark, and it's not in a comedic way at all. And so our main character survives just from a bullet wound to her neck that damages her spine. Though it really doesn't kind of affect her, more or less. She's in hospital for a while, learns to play a lot more instruments, piano, guitar, and then writes a song with her sister, to commemorate, because it's too hard for her to be able to just say this stuff during the eulogy at the church, after she was healed during the mass funeral. She sings a song, gets recorded, gets put up online, because the internet existed back in '99, and it's like an overnight sensation kind of thing, and becomes the anthem for this tragedy, and for tragedies about it. And so her parent, obviously, people see that she's something, she has talent, and Jude Law, who plays her producer, music producer, is contacted by the parents and whatever, and is like, okay, we want you to be a producer, get her to make good music and whatever, because she obviously has a talent for it, and while people know her and she's in their minds, let's exploit that. It's not verbally clarified that way. It's never taken. You never get a focus on what the parents think. You pretty much just see them thankful that their daughter is alive, and then that's it. Like, you only get backhand comments about the fact that, like Jude Law saying, like, your parents hired me because I am the best, that kind of thing. It's like, they trust me with taking care of you and making sure you are a star and all that kind of jazz. So the first half of the film tackles that for the next 2 years, literally leading up to 9/11, and it's just her experiencing life as a 14-year-old artist, goes to a different country, all this kind of stuff, and just experiences the world. nothing really happens. She meets a guy who is in a kind of rock band who's obviously 20, and it's implied later in the film that they may have slept together, because after the, there's been an attack in New York City, we've got to call our parents scene. Cut to 20 years later, narrated by Willem Dafoe, which is kind of surreal, but also really cool. No complaints there. And you're with Natalie Portman now, who is the 30-year-old version of Celeste. Big pop star, has just released a new album called Vox Lux, which is a kind of like sci-fi inspired album, like sci-fi pop, which is like really weird. And she is doing a tour, and it's the night of her tour, but the scene doesn't start with her. The scene starts with 2017, a bunch of people wearing some masks that are replicas of, costume store replicas of the foot mask that is present in Celeste's first ever music video. These four people come in wearing these masks and then shoot up a beach. Very strange kind of location. They just shoot up a beach. Okay then. Don't really know what that really means. And so, of course, now you're brought into the life of Celeste again, 20 years later. How is she surviving and whatever? Maybe it's 15 years later. I don't really care. She's 30. Who cares? 15 years later. And that's the event that's started the story for this age of her. And also her bringing herself back into music, being like, I'm, as if she's taken a few years off and to deal with some personal shit, and now she's back into doing music again. She's doing a concert in her hometown, doing a world tour, and she's starting in her hometown. And the media's like, oh, is this event related to you? What do you think of it? And it's like, even like she's talking to Jude Law, and he's like, they probably just bought it at a costume store, like without a second thought about it. And so you'll think that this plays an important role in the rest of the film, like maybe because she does a press conference and says like, I don't care, like I'll openly invite them to my concert to tell them that we're better than them, we can fight past this, whatever, because it's this whole idea of, will this tragedy stop her from playing her concert? It doesn't, which is pretty cool. The concert's pretty cool. And so this whole time while I was watching the concert, I just had this kind of anxiety about, like, holy fuck, a terrorist going to shoot this place up. Like, of course, knowing in recent history, which I think mostly inspired this film, the whole terrorist attack that happened, I don't really know if it inspired it, but it's what I was thinking of. The terrorist attack that happened at the Ariana Grande concert. And, like, I feel like it's some kind of commentary on it in a way. I don't really know how, but again, it's kind of this monetization of tragedy. I don't really know if Ariana Grande did that kind of thing, like monetize the tragedy. I don't know if she's not really that kind of person anyway. Point being is that Celeste is. So Celeste isn't a very nice person to begin with. You get her at the age of 14 and she's innocent young, but not a great person, and then cycle through, she's a bitch as a 30-year-old, and the actress who plays her daughter is the same actress that plays the young 14-year-old version of her, and it's really surreal. Like, she just pops up and it's like, it's good to see you again, daughter, and it's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, to the point that the actress who plays the sister of Celeste is like 16, in 1999, and then is like in her 30s or whatever, same as like 2 years older than Natalie Portman, played by the exact same actress who is actually in her 30s. She just they just use makeup to make her look younger, and it's just weird because she's like the chick from Nymphomaniac, and it's like, what the fuck is happening? So they don't change. It's just weird. That's a bit of the character things that's happening. It's not exactly as much of a mess as I'm trying to detail it. Like, again, it's pretty equally split in half and half. The second half is obviously looking at how her life is kind of fucked, and how, I wouldn't exactly say drugs, but kind of, like how everything's taken a toll on her, like having a kid at a young age, so probably at the age of like 16 or something, she had her own kid, which would make sense as to why the younger version of her, who's now a daughter, is that 14-year-old age. So that works out. And so that builds to what you've missed in the past 15 years or whatever, plus the distancing between her and her sister, because her sister is actually the talent. She's the one who actually writes all the songs. But then in return, she now also takes care of Celeste's daughter. Pretty much what I wanted to talk about in this film, outside of the fact that it's literally just a depiction of a possible real life thing, like the whole start of the terrorist attack, someone becomes famous because of it, because they are able to export their own talent, and then you look at them 15 years later, what's changed? They've become a much worse person, much more of a bitch, and like takes everything kind of for granted, but then overly emotionally explodes about stuff, and it's very well performed, you know. It's as realistic as they could have made it. I mean, even the concert is like the last 20 minutes, and that's it. It's just a whole bunch of songs played. They're all done by Sia, so they're good. And all the choreography is done by Natalie Portman's husband, and it's good. I mean, I swear to God, she dabs in one of her as one of her routines. It's hilarious. And the film just plays the concert, and then it ends. Nothing happens. She plays a concert. It's just like, life goes on, you know. Like, behind the stage, she's a bit of a bitch. She's gone through a lot of shit, and, you know, but then on the stage, her fans are digging it. They love it. There's no character resolution. It's just there. It's just, that's what you get. That's the whole film. That's the whole picture. So onto this idea of the monetization of tragedy. I read this in one of the reviews from Letterboxd, so of course it's not my original idea, but it really got me into thinking, because the film as it was just, what the fuck? It's one of those films that you look for reviews, and you're like, I kind of need someone else to explain what the fuck just happened, like, not explain the events of the films, but explain why I'm having this reaction to it. And yeah, so this person explained how it was the monetization of tragedy. I caught onto that, and I'm like, that's a cool idea. I mean, it's a cool way to, you know, explain the film. It just makes you think, how fucked up that is. Now, of course, that's a wholeheartedly a possibility that in real life such actions can take place, where you will see someone who goes through some shit and then exploits it in their own way, usually for this idea of being like, I've become a better person because of it, and then there's a concert or does some film or something, and it's like, it's all symbolic of those events of their life. Holy shit, does that scratch on the nose of A Star Is Born. Sorry, Bradley Cooper, that used to be an alcoholic. Anyway, you know, that film is totally... How is that film not kind of mostly based on reality? In a way. You know, Bradley Cooper being an alcoholic and having this whole thing. He's not a musician, of course. He's I guess now a filmmaker, yes. But he's an actor. So what's the difference? And then, of course, you've got Lady Gaga's whole thing of her being... probably was a nobody and a really good singer and talented, and then becomes famous. I don't remember how she became famous. She just became famous when I was a teenager, and then boom, she's doing all this shitty pop music that, you know, even she hated, that exploits sexuality and stuff, because it's like, oh my god, is she a guy or a girl? Oh, because that was an important thing. And then it turns out, no, she actually has talent all along. Hi. Anyway, I mean, it was a good film. I think it's a little overrated, but it's a good film. Vox Lux, on the other hand, is not a bad film. It's an interesting film. One that at least you'd be thinking about afterwards. Like, you wouldn't be thinking about it in an emotional way, but more or less again, in this idea of the monetization of tragedy. Because they even kind of tackle this in the second half, where after this whole second beach terrorist attack happens, they're like, do we want to still go along with this show or whatever? And, Natalie Portman's character, Celeste is like, of course I do, like, of course, they set up this press conference, so she's like, oh, I understand that, like, they used masks from my music clip, but I'm like, I don't care, like, I'm still gonna do my shit because fuck you guys, I'm not gonna bow down to terrorism, that kind of spiel, and, making it a bit about herself in a way, because so is the media, they're making it about her, like, this mask has more meaning than you think. Or maybe not, like, no one at this point, like, literally, throughout the whole entire segment, no one claims responsibility for the attack. At least in the school shooting thing, it's a kid who's just kind of fucked up. And very golf-like, so it's, like, obviously that kind of teen angst depression thing. But the part where you'd be too very, very, practical about doing bad shit to other people, aka the school shooting. And this was just a random attack for potentially no reason. Again, never explained in the film, but that's kind of the point, because it's not really about that. It's setting up how Celeste reacts to it, because she's the important figure here, to you at least, to the audience. And yeah, it's just the whole thing is about her arguing whether or not she should do it, but she wants to. That she wants to. It's poor coincidence that it happened on the same day that her tour started, that kind of stuff. I'm just trying to fucking find my train of thought. It's not, I don't know, I don't want to make this a review of the film. Of course, I said it's a decent film. It's well made. It's definitely interesting and completely different. And literally it has its own act structure that it literally says, like, oh, part 1, Genesis, part 2, Regenesis, part 3, epilogue, and the epilogue is the concert. Genesis is her as a kid, Regenesis is her as a 30-year-old, and then the epilogue is just a concert. That's literally how the structure of the film goes. God, how long have I been talking for? Oh, almost 20 minutes. More or less, if anything, and overall, I'm just finding the idea interesting. I'm certain that there are other films that have explored this kind of thing, but it's like, I feel those films, like, say, in terms of the music biopic, most of those music biopics themselves are the monetization of tragedy of this person's life. Sometimes, of course, they try to make it seem like this person is a good person, whatever. Say, like, unfortunately, Bohemian Rhapsody and, like, Walk the Line, it's like, oh, they took drugs and they did bad stuff, but they're still a good person and they made good music, and it's like, this is Vox Lux, fictional film and everything. It's so centered in reality that it knows exactly what it's doing. It's telling 2 points of one person's life, one musician's life, and how it's defined by tragedy. Sometimes to them, sometimes external, that still relates to them. Actually, no, that's not really something. It just is that. Walk the Line, Bohemian Rhapsody is just like, here's them at the start of their life, here's them at the end of their life. But we gotta start at the end, they gotta reflect on their life, and then we gotta go through all the beats, the love, the drugs, the love and other drugs, and then boom. And then that's the movie. I will admit, Walk the Line's a good film. Bohemian Rhapsody is not a good film. If you want to watch a good video that goes into that kind of stuff, I'd suggest Patrick H. Williams' The Formula of Musical Biopics. It'll either be in the end tag or in the description if I remember. He also recommends Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, which is a satire of those. It doesn't exactly relate to this, but it kind of does, mostly because this and, like, A Star is Born is like how you would do a musical biopic, in this case about a fictional character. So it develops this idea of you gotta look at their life, and like they've already, it doesn't show like A Star Is Born didn't show Lady Gaga as a kid. It didn't show her as a teenager. Then when she gets her band and everything, no, it just happened. Life just happened like that. She had this natural talent, and then boom, life happened because fucking what's his face walks into a bar and is like, hey, she's actually a chick. I dig that. And then Vox Lux is just massacre leads to sing songs, and yeah. Do I think the morals or the ideals in this film, Vox Lux, are bad? No, I think they're interesting. It's definitely not as catchy of a film as A Star Is Born. And unfortunately, it's really the only thing I can really reflect it onto, because outside of the fact that they both came out the same year, one was mostly ignored. Like, Vox Lux is mostly ignored. But I think it's the more uber-realistic with a kind of it's not even this. The ending isn't even an ending enough to say if it's happy or sad. Like, A Star Is Born is a sad ending because, all that stuff happens. Spoilers for the fourth remake of a film that everyone's seen before. My generation hadn't, of course. Unless you're into musicals. And so it ends with this, sad stuff, but it uplifting with this final song and the message and all that, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna cry now, unless you already were crying, But then Vox Lux, on the other hand, is just like, fuck that, you're just gonna be in a state of shock for a solid 2 hours, just holding onto your seat, being like, what is happening? The end of the movie, once the credits hit, I just had people, the first thing I heard was someone behind me just be like, what the fuck was that? And just started laughing. And, there's a bunch of, 4 women in the back row who came to watch a really cool, musical film. And they were also started laughing because they was like, what the hell was that? It's so unfathomable as to how this film is just a film, yet everything about it makes sense, and it's actually pretty well done. And then everyone was just outside of potentially that's not what I expected, but also that wasn't the direction I expected. I think that's the way to put it. You don't expect it to be a film about the monetization of tragedy, it starts with a tragic event, yeah. But then, you see her as how she deals with that, and then you see her 15 years later, and maybe what the fame has done to her. And you think it'll be maybe a more uplifting thing by the end of, what has the fame done to her? It's just made her successful. I mean, she's a cold-hearted kind of bitch. She has her flavor, but she's been through so much shit in her life, and, for 15 straight years of being not great, yeah. And it's not even this thing of we got to put in this 15 years of exposition and then just kind of wrap that up. It doesn't even do that. It establishes the fact that the producer slept with her sister, but then the only reference to that later, when she's 30, is that, she doesn't like them talking to each other. And instead she sleeps with the producer just because they get, high on cocaine or some shit and just start doing shit. And then you've got the thing of her daughter, and that's, she establishes verbally, and it's established pretty, through actions and whatever, non-verbally, how they don't really get along, and the daughter gets more along with the aunt because she's forced to, pretty much. But then you can kind of see how Celeste is trying to reconnect with her daughter, because she doesn't want her daughter to go through the same shit that she went through, mainly because this is the pivotal point for her daughter, because, of course, this was when Celeste went through all this stuff. So, it all makes sense. So I don't really know how I'd talk about the monetization of tragedy outside of just how the film depicts itself. I think it's a clever theme. I think it's an interesting idea. I definitely recommend seeing this film. I don't know if I'd recommend buying it, if it's on Netflix or something, which it probably would be. It will be eventually. If you can see it in cinemas, I'd suggest it. It's something different. And realistically, if through me spoiling pretty much the whole entire movie, it's like, would you still watch it? I would watch it for the experience. It's one of those films that just happens to be an experience, unlike something I've really seen before. Like, I don't really know what other films are like. At least nothing's really coming to mind right now of a film that is just a pure experience. More or less like cinema should be. I mean, Stalker is kind of like that, the Tarkovsky film. But yeah, you know, like, you shouldn't go into Vox Lux expecting something really, jamming, because it's music and it's sear and it's going to be popping and rocking and all the thingies. It's not. But yeah. So, that was a video. It was very much a ramble for 26 minutes. Bloody hell. Yeah. I'm done talking about this film. I've gotten my thoughts out there. This has been building up for almost a week now. And it's like 11:30 at night. It's the easiest time for me to film, surprisingly, because, you know, Sam and Noel might not have gone to bed, but they're in their own room, and like Mum and Dad have gone to bed because they're not out there watching TV, so I don't have the background sound. So that's convenient. So that's a thing that might be happening in the future. Yeah. So. Again, I'm on Letterboxd. I don't know if you saw my channel update or not. Feel free to like and subscribe, I guess. You know, I'm trying to do more stuff like this where it's, you know, sit on the couch, kind of improviser kind of thing. Sometimes I'll have a script, sometimes I won't. I like dissecting films like this. And in more of a kind of mindless ramble, but at the same time, I still, get the idea across in a way. I'm still trying to perfect this type of video, the mindless ramble, as I could call it. I probably should have written down notes, but pretty much I had the head notes in my head. It's like, you know, you can talk about the whole film and how it's structured and how it reflects the characters and stuff, how it's interesting, compare it to, like, you know, other musical biopics that are about real life people, and then stuff like A Star Is Born, I'm pointing to the Blu-ray. That's why I keep looking up there. Yeah, and it's just, So, yeah, thanks for watching. Check out Vox Lux if you get the chance to, if you're interested in that kind of thing. I'm not really saying that this was my selling pitch, but someone had to sell this movie. Yeah, so if you like this kind of video, or you want me to watch a kind of film like this, or whatever, or talk about a kind of film, feel free to comment it. Letterboxd is in my description. Probably might be in my bio at some stage on my channel. I don't know yet. I watch a lot of movies. I'll see you around. End card. Look, there's the subscribe, and there's the like, and there's the other videos. Check out the Patrick H. Williams one, it's really good. My hands are waving. Clickety-clack. Let's go.